Park rangers spend most of their time dealing with lost hikers, wildlife issues, and routine patrols, but every once in a while they stumble onto something that does not fit any normal explanation. Objects that should not exist in the middle of nowhere, discoveries that raise more questions than answers, and scenes so strange that even experienced rangers admit they still do not understand what they found. The ranger said he knew something was wrong before he ever saw the bodies. In July of 1999, park rangers in Yosemite National Park responded to reports of a missing woman who had been last seen camping with a friend. The search area was deep in the park, far from the main tourist zones. When rangers reached a remote area near Cedar Lodge, they discovered the remains of 2 women, and the scene showed clear signs of violence. At first, the case appeared isolated, but within weeks, rangers were called again. This time, the victims were a family of 3. The crimes shook the Park Service. Rangers began working with the FBI and local law enforcement. Patrols were increased, campgrounds were quietly monitored, visitors were not told the full details. The evil person behind these crimes turned out to be Carrie Stainer, a hotel maintenance worker who lived near the park and knew the terrain well. He used backroad ranger access routes and isolated trails to avoid detection. Rangers later confirmed that Stainer had been living and moving through the park unnoticed while working maintenance jobs nearby. He blended in. He knew when rangers patrolled and when areas were empty. The discovery of the bodies only happened after someone went missing. Until then, there was no sign anything was wrong. After his arrest, Stainer confessed, and for many rangers, this case permanently changed how they viewed remote areas of national parks, not as empty wilderness, but as places where someone could hide in plain sight for years. This story comes from Reddit and reads, quote, "I once escorted a church group, ages young kids through adults, on a weekend overnight outing to a camp in the Poconos. The camp was set at the confluence of 2 streams and was somewhat rugged. The group had lots to do, climbing wall, boating, hiking, sports, all kind of stuff, including a nature center and little museum. The nature center had interactive displays, fish tanks, small animals, etc., and a touch table, a large wooden table with sides on which was scattered all sorts of artifacts the guests could pick up and handle. These items included deer antlers, bones, turtle shells, feathers, arrowheads, and pottery, rocks, seeds, nuts, tanned hides, etc. Little kids especially loved it. All of the items were found by guests or staff while out in the camp and returned to the nature center. I handled the items also, and I noticed one bone had a really odd shape. I am an environmental scientist by profession and an outdoorsman and naturalist for fun, and can generally recognize what bones came from what parts of what animals. This bone was a human mandible, the lower jawbone of a person. It was severely worn smooth and had no teeth, but easily recognizable as such. It had been there for years, handled by thousands of people, and no one noticed it, or at least reported it. I reported it to the director, who removed it and notified the state police. They investigated it. It seemed very old, and no one was reported missing in the immediate area, so the camp was allowed to keep it. Possible explanation: the facility was the site of a timbering and ice harvesting camp up until the 1920s, and may have been the remains of a worker who died and was buried right there, but who knows the real story, and as far as I know, it's still on the table. In 2013, park rangers patrolling Wrangell St. Elias National Park in Alaska were alerted to exposed bones melting out of a glacier. What they expected to find was a partial skeleton. What they found instead was the remains of a woolly mammoth, so well preserved it still had tissue attached. The mammal had been locked in ice for thousands of years. Rangers documented tusks, hair fragments, and sections of muscle. What confused scientists was the position of the mammoth. It appeared to have fallen into a crevasse suddenly. There were no signs of scavenging or weathering. Carbon dating confirmed the mammoth died over 17,000 years ago. The mystery was not just the preservation, it was how quickly the animal appeared to have been entombed. The evidence suggested a sudden, catastrophic freezing event. In 1970, park rangers in the remote forests of Oregon stumbled upon something extremely dangerous and completely unexpected. Hidden beneath layers of moss and debris was an unexploded Japanese balloon bomb from World War II. These devices were launched from Japan in an attempt to carry explosives across the Pacific using jet stream winds. Very few were ever recovered. The ranger who found it initially thought it was scrap metal, only after noticing strange wiring and a corroded explosive charge did he alert authorities. Bomb disposal teams confirmed the device was still live even after decades in the forest. What shocked rangers was how far inland the bomb had traveled. It had landed miles from any known recovery sites. The area was immediately evacuated and the bomb was destroyed safely. The discovery confirmed that many balloon bombs likely landed in remote wilderness areas and were never found. In 1931, rangers in the Rocky Mountain National Park discovered a pair of leather shoes protruding from melting snow at extreme altitude. These shoes were unlike modern footwear. They were handmade and stitched using techniques consistent with prehistoric construction. Further investigation revealed fragments of clothing and tools nearby. Carbon dating later confirmed the items were over 8,000 years old. What baffled researchers was the elevation. The site sat far higher than known habitation zones for the time period. There were no known trails, no campsites, no evidence of long-term settlement. Rangers helped archaeologists document the site before weather destroyed it. The discovery suggested ancient humans traveled much higher into the mountains than previously believed. Even today, researchers cannot explain why someone would have been in that location with such limited resources. Fire lookout towers exist in some of the most isolated places in North America. Multiple retired lookouts have shared the same story independently. Strange lights appearing in valleys at night. Not campfires, not vehicles. The lights moved uphill, changed direction suddenly, and disappeared when observed through binoculars. Weather data confirmed no storms, no aircraft, no nearby roads. One lookout reported the lights approaching the base of the tower before vanishing entirely. These reports were logged as unexplained visual phenomena and dismissed as fatigue. But the consistency across different parks and decades is what unsettles people. Many of these accounts come directly from ranger and lookout AMA threads. In the southwest US, park rangers frequently monitor old mining claims. Most are collapsed, some are sealed. One in particular was left untouched for years. Rangers reported a strong smell coming from inside the mine. Not rot, not animals, something chemical. When they finally inspected the entrance, they found modern gear inside. Flashlights, batteries, food wrappers, rope. The mine had no registered claim and no legal access trail. Law enforcement later advised rangers not to enter due to safety concerns. No follow-up search was conducted. Former rangers on Reddit have stated that some abandoned mines are quietly flagged as do not enter sites without explanation given to staff. The equipment inside was never removed. The ranger said the first thing that felt wrong was how organized it was. In 2018, a backcountry ranger in Northern California was tracking illegal camp activity inside a protected wilderness zone. What he found was not a homeless camp or a survivalist shelter. It was a hidden settlement made of multiple camouflaged structures spread across several acres. There were food caches buried in waterproof containers, trip lines made of fishing wire, lookout positions built into trees, and handwritten schedules showing patrol times for rangers. The camp was abandoned when discovered, but still warm. Law enforcement later identified it as part of an illegal operation involving illicit substances. But what made it even more disturbing was how long it had gone undetected. Rangers later admitted similar camps had been found in other parks, some with booby traps, some with warning signs written directly to rangers. Several rangers have since confirmed that they are trained to back away immediately if they encounter these camps alone. In 1977, park rangers hiking a remote section of Death Valley National Park made a discovery that made no sense. Embedded in rock high above the valley floor were the fossilized remains of a whale. The bones were massive and clearly marine. Geologists confirmed the fossils were millions of years old from a time when the area was underwater. While the explanation is geological uplift, the site itself was completely surreal. Rangers described standing in desert heat, staring at proof the land was once an ocean. The site remains one of the strangest visual discoveries ever documented by park staff. In 2006, rangers in Yellowstone National Park discovered an untouched camp campsite buried beneath layers of volcanic ash. The site contained cookware tools and clothing, arranged as if the occupants had simply vanished. Dating placed the campsite in the mid-1800s. There were no human remains. The ash layer suggested a sudden natural event forced abandonment, and rangers worked with historians to document the site. No records exist explaining who the campers were or where they went, and the campsite remains preserved as a snapshot in time. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye!